أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. We're entering into the nights, as hopefully it will not get further delayed than it has already today. But as mentioned earlier, it's the weekend. What better place to be than a masjid? What better thing to be doing than commemorating the majlis and being part of the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada? And again, for every moment that you spend on musalla, until you leave that musalla, it is guaranteed that the angels are praying for you and are writing thawab for you. When you're in a masjid, Prophet himself has said that either should you be performing salat or busy in a discussion or learning something. So alhamdulillah, when we come to this masjid, we perform the salat. And now we are part of this discussion with the faith and the grace of Imam Hussein, that we're able to discuss and shed some light on the teachings of Masumeen alayhi salatu wasalam. The ayat that I have been reciting for the last 5-6 nights is from Surah Fajr, chapter 89, verses 27 through 30. And we've been mentioning the implementation of nafs mutma'in, the serene soul and the satisfied soul, in the form of Imam Hussein. Why? It was the soul. The reason that it was satisfied. And the two words Radi and Mardi are used in this ayah as well. Radi is that he had shown patience and he had shown graciousness, sabr and shukr in front of the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will connect that inshallah towards the end when I start the masaib. That how Imam alayhi salatu wasalam showed patience, not as far as the calamities were coming down upon him, more so the advices that Imam was getting from people. Because people do not have that, what Imam is able to see. For example, you went ahead of me on this road and you saw that there was construction going on. So you came back, and has been construction going on this road. Alhamdulillah, it's finished now. But you came back and told the rest that there is construction, so don't go. But it's still, some people were still, eager because they have the easier path or their route is from there. They still went that direction, trying their luck. Maybe the road was open, to only be disappointed that no, road was still closed and they had to come back. As far as the knowledge is concerned of the unseen, Imam is the same way. Imam can see and understand and knows and realizes the task that is ahead of him. But that is something which is lacking from everyone else who's giving advices to Imam. And so that's why you see some of these requests and the advices that Imam was getting, they're okay on their own. Why? Because these people do not have the sight to see what Imam is able to see. Today, even after so many years, this event is commemorated in the same fashion, if not better than it was being celebrated or commemorated before. I think Azadari is something which is increasing every year. A lot of you, some of you are more experienced than me, being elders, have been commemorating Azadari for the last 40, 50, 60 years. You can recall 50 years ago, how was it commemorated? And compare that with today, how it is being commemorated right now. And I'm sure you will say that it has gotten better, or it has grown more than it was before. Yes, with the challenges also arising, as the brother, when he was announcing, he was talking about how lucky we are that we are able to sit in this masjid. And the least of our worries is the security and the immunity of the place. But imagine those places in the world. Every day we're hoping nothing goes wrong, but still we hear firing over there, bomb blast over there. Mu'mineen, Azadar were attacked. So this is one of your least worries over here. You don't have any worries as far as the security and the immunity is concerned. You're able to commemorate with the right and the freedom that you have in this masjid. And all the masajid in the area that are commemorating. Now I'll get back to as to what is our duty towards the masjid. And as the request was done as earlier as well, what can we give to ensure our future? But going back to how this process of depreciation and the process, the transition and the transformation, how things depreciate and the things become obsolete and later on they're forgotten. This is a phenomenon for everything, at least in the material world that we live in. There's transition and transformation, depreciation. Things are obsolete after a while, extinct, and then forgotten. We see the land is ever changing. You look at the history and you study the geography of the land, you see how many different shapes it has taken already. Yeah, it took millions and millions of years, but what was the shape before and what it is now? You look at Quran when it talks about how you think that these mountains are standing firm. وَتَرَى الْجَبَالَ تَحْسَبُهَا جَامِدًا وَتَمُرُّ كَمَرِّ السَّحَابِ تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. That you think that these mountains are fixed and situated and they don't have any change. No. They're also going through a transition and transformation like the clouds. You look at the clouds and the clouds, how they're changing so quickly, rapidly. That might not be the case with the mountains, but they do over a period change and there's transition. We look at, as Quran talks about the sun and the moon, that there will come a time the sun will cease to shine. Will come a time when the moon will not have its light and the brightness that it has. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. All of those ayat that talk about that these phenomena that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, they're also getting old, if you want to call it, and there's transformation and transition in it. And the best example is human beings, you and I. From a child to the old age, you look at how we develop and how we change. The transformation and the transition from being a child, then growing up as an adult, then getting old, and then dying. Nobody denies from this phenomena that exists for every human being. So from this we understand that this world is ever changing. Everything in it is ever changing. People are forgotten after a while. But we remember that those who have left some sort of legacy. And in this case, the prime example is the example of Imam Hussein, who is still remembered. Nothing has changed, only it has gotten even better. Instead of the mawdu and the topic to be decreasing. Okay, we commemorated for 50 years, we should forget it now. We did it for 100 years, we should forget it now. 200, 300, 400, 500 years, every year seems like it is increasing. And that is the reason behind it is the blood, the pure blood that Imam ﷺ and his companions sacrificed for our sake. But we should not make Imam Hussein to be like Jesus Christ, as the Christians have done. That Jesus died for our sins, so therefore there's no duty on our behalf anymore. We will definitely go and embrace paradise regardless of what we do. There's no hold bars and nothing is going to be asked, no accountability. He died for our sins. You take this God who is considered to be wise and full of wisdom, that he's going to go ahead and let this be the formula for some people, a group of people, just because their leader died for their survival. Now they will not be held accountable, though. Every single one of us will be held accountable. And that's why we focus more on the reality of Ashura, alongside with this grief that we have for Imam Hussein and his companions. We come and we shed some tears. We focus on the real picture that Imam ﷺ has left for us. Under the lines, or between the lines, or under, as far as the message of Ashura is concerned, that we've been discussing every single night, we see that Imam ﷺ for the last 1400 years, ever since this incident had taken place, this azadari is something which is remembered in a better way. It is only increasing. Why? Because Imam was razi bil qadr wal qaza. Remember the ayat that I just recited? Radiyatan mardiyya. Imam was razi with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Going towards danger. Someone might say you're walking into a brick wall. In other words, Imam is just saying this is servitude and ubudiyat, and the highest level of ubudiyat, that I'm radhi with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planned for me. Two ways of looking at it. One person might be looking at it that you're going towards halakat, where Imam is saying this is what God has chosen for me, the path, and I'm going towards that. And there's complete prosperity and sa'adat in it for me. And not just for Imam, but more so there's sa'adat for us. Whatever is haqq, whatever is truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps the survival of that truth. Example in Quran is given very beautifully, is that when it rains and the flood water fills up the valleys and you see the water running down, there's this foam on top of the water. This foam or scum on top of the water. And then when this water runs down different valleys and different alleys and different streams, you can see clearly that this foam on top of it. But afterwards, the water settles down and the foam is gone. What is that remains is beneficial for the ground. The water that remains is beneficial for the ground. The foam was never beneficial. That's why you don't see the foam anymore. That which remains is the water that is irrigating the land. Example of Imam Hussein is the same way for the survival of the religion serves as the life of this religion, as the water, maya hayat, which is giving the life to this religion. That Imam ﷺ, in this example, in this parable, is kind of like this water, which is irrigating this religion of Islam. And because of that, the survival of the religion is imminent, that Imam ﷺ gave that example. What is the reason behind this everlasting effect? Again, we'll recite an ayat of Quran. It says, فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ فَيَذْهَبُ جَفَاءً. This is in Surah Ra'd, verse number 17. That the top part goes away, but the bottom part settles down. And that bottom part, life of Sayyidul Shuhada, is like this water, which is the source of life, rescued the tree of Islam and irrigated it. You look at another example in Quran of Shajara Tayyaba. It says, Alam tara, have you not seen, Kayfa daraballahu masalan, that have you not seen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the example of Shajara Tayyaba, this pure tree of the kalama haq, the reality and the truth. Have you not seen the example of that? He says, Asluha sabit. Its origins are in the ground, firm. Wa far'uha fis sama. But the branches are reaching out to the skies. Imam's example is same. If we can understand that what Imam ﷺ had stood up for, and what Imam ﷺ was giving, like this ayah, it says it gives fruit in every season. Imam ﷺ, after 1400 years, is still giving fruit even in this season that we are in. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. With this tamheed that I had to go through, go back to the messages that we were talking about. And the message was yesterday that we were discussing the Isar, and I'll translate, preferring others over himself. That is the reason, one of the reasons why the name of Hussein is still alive. That he sacrificed, that he did Isar. Isar means preferred others over himself. It is now our duty in return to do the same Isar. How do you get to this Isar? The first level is by having tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Relying completely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second means is to be content in this life. Radi with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed upon you. And thirdly, remembering Qayamat at all times. If you can keep this threefold formula, reliance on Allah, being content with what He has given to you, and always keep Qayamat in your mind. This threefold formula is the key to any success. Tawakkul, then qana'at, and then remembering Qayamat. Tawakkul on Allah gives you the ability to only focus on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you. A lot of time what happens is we focus on things that we don't have, and we fail to focus on things that we do have. We're always looking around things that we don't have. And in the same time, we're not preserving that which we already have. That's why human beings are referred to as huzn. They have grief and they have fear. Grief for what they don't have, and fear of losing what they already have. But if you keep this threefold formula of tawakkul on Allah, qana'at, whatever He has given, just be content with that. Lives of Masumeen is filled. Unfortunately, these examples are only good in the books. Reading about it, feeling good, and then when it comes to application, it's not there. And then constantly remembering Qayamat. When you constantly remember Qayamat, as Dr. Saab was saying, you think for the future. Today, if someone was to come and tell you that, I work for Wall Street and there's a stock that is coming out and it will be good if you invested in it. Just this much if someone was to come and tell you, many of us will jump into buying that stock. Why? Because we know that it has returns. Just a word of another brother who happens to be an expert in this field. And that is the difference when we take the word from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and word from another individual. Prophet, for this purpose said, Antum kal marda, you are like patients, bimar, mareed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your tabib. What is the duty of a tabib and a physician? To treat the patients. When we get sick, when we get ill, we refer towards a physician. Physician comes and tells us, or if we go see him, that this is the diagnosis and this is what's wrong with you. You should take this, you should avoid this, you should, do this for a while, go on this diet, and so on and so forth. We take the word right away. And we oblige. We say yes. Tabib, a physician who's only aware of our physical body, telling us his expert advice, we take it. Like this person who told us, invest in this stock, we took the word and we went ahead and invested. But for 1400 years, through the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the word of Rasulullah, Quran is appealing. وَمَن يَقْرُضْ, who will go ahead and loan Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a beautiful loan. And the other ayat, Surah Baqarah, verse number 261 was recited. That as to how, if you invest and you spend, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiplies that by 7 times. Like a seed which multiplies into 100 times each, for basically every penny that you give is multiplied by 700 times. Allah keeps telling us, Quran keeps repeating these things, yet we don't take heed. But someone comes and tells us, this is what, if you invest over here, you will get it back right away. This is the problem, right away. The sooner that we get, the more satisfied we are. I'm investing in this stock, I will know by a month or 2 how much I have made. But when I invest in this masjid, or towards the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I might not find out after my death. Until my death, for example. But I'm not willing to take this challenge, or not willing to invest so much as far as this is concerned. We look at who are we followers of. Farazdaq, a poet, says in regards to our 4th Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "Ma qala la qattu illa fi tashahhudihi, lawla tashahhud kanat la'uhu na'am." He said, Imam never said la. La means what? No. I'm sure we all know this much Arabic. La. La means no. For us to say, Imam never said no in his life to anyone. If a beggar came, a person came, a sa'il came, a questioner came, Imam never said no to them. In fact, when people came, a beggar came, Imam said to the extent that give. Why? Because he's doing you a favor. How? I'm giving this person money. How is he doing me a favor? He's transporting your goods from this life to the hereafter. You use these, money exchange, or you use these money transferring agencies to transfer money from this country to that country to whatever. Many of you have families back home, so you transfer money. You do that. You know the system already. But how do we transfer our goods in the hereafter? When a person dies, people around him say, "Ma taraka," what has he left? But the angels say, "Ma qaddama," what has he sent? Not what he has left. What he has left is going to remain over here. It will be used up before he knows it. It will be dispersed among the people and the inheritors. But what he has sent already, that is the investment of his life. So Imam said, don't say no to the beggar that comes to your door. He's doing you a favor by transferring your money or your goods from this life to the hereafter. Because when you go over there, at least you should have something. When you travel to a new place, you make sure that you're carrying enough, or you have sent enough money over there that you will be able to survive when you reach. or you have someone over there who will be able to take care of you. In this regards, who do we have? We have the goods that we have in our hands that we can transfer in this way, and we have these ma'asumeen, whom we rely so much on the shafa'at and their intercession. Farazak said that Imam never said La in his life. And if it wasn't for the tashahhud in namaz, what do we say in tashahhud? Ashhadu an la ilaha. If it wasn't for tashahhud, Imam would have never said La. He was majboor of saying La in tashahhud, but his La were actually Naam, yes. We are the followers of such individuals. You want more examples? Example of Hazrat Khadija, salamullahi alayha. As to what she did, known as Malikatul Arab. But as soon as Prophet asks for this, there's no bigger example of the infaq and the support, the financial support that Janab Khadija provided. I think we owe this to her, that the religion, again, it was the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide the financial and the moral support through these two individuals. One in the form of Hazrat Khadija, second in the form of Abi Talib. One providing the moral support, the other providing the financial support. And that's how Islam initially was able to move forward. That's why Islam is, from the huduth, from the origination point of view, Muhammadiyul huduth, but from the survival's point of view, Husayniyul baqa. That Rasulullah originated the religion, and it was Imam Hussein who was able to keep it surviving as it is today. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So again, you gotta look over, and you gotta look on others and prefer others over yourself. Because we, the ones whom we follow, used to do that. I'm reciting ayat from Quran. It says, يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَأَسِيرًا وَيَتِيمًا. Surah Dahr, chapter 76. The whole chapter is revealed in regards to Ahlul Bayt. يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. They feed because even though they have the love for this ta'am, some people say the word hubbihi, the dhamir is referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but many mufassirin say no, the word Allah is actually far back, so that's why the dhamir is actually referring to ta'am. They feed even though they have love for this ta'am, this food. To whom? These three. The whole event is in your eyes, in your background, that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein have fallen sick. Rasulullah comes to their house, says to Amirul Mu'mineen and Janab Fatima to go ahead and fast for 3 days. They go ahead and fast so that the Hassanain could be cured. And once they were cured, they went ahead and fulfilled their vow. But every day when they wanted to break the fast, person would come knocking on the door. First day, a yatim came. Then an asir, a captive came. Then on the third day, an orphan came. A destitute came. And this is how they gave away. We are the followers of those who are giving and preferring others, even if they don't know who these individuals are, upon themselves. But over here, I want to take this minute. We look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this sifat of yut'im to Ahlul Bayt. No doubt that it is referring towards Amirul Mu'mineen, Janab Fatima, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, and even the lady who was in their house serving Hazrat Fidda. At another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Huwa yut'imu wa la yut'am. Allah is the one who feeds others, but does not need any feeding himself. Allah does not need any feeding. He is the one who feeds. So the sifat of feeding belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we refer to Quran again. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to explain to us Hazrat Isa and Hazrat Maryam, salamullahi alayha. Allah says, Kana yakulan at-ta'am. They both used to eat. If I was to ask some of you, we were talking about something, you said, you know so and so, let's say in Pakistan, or you know so and so in Hyderabad. And I said, can you explain a little bit about him? So, well, he's tall and he eats. That doesn't help. You gotta give me more than that. How does he look like? Some family background. Other key things that distinguishes him from others. Tall and eats. Everybody does that. Many people are tall, many people eat. Everybody eats. When I give this sort of example, you laugh. And you should. You start questioning what's wrong with this person. But when we ask Quran that give us the explanation how Hazrat Isa and Hazrat Maryam were, Quran says, Kana yakulan ta'am. They both used to eat. Oh Allah, Hazrat Isa, ulul azm Nabi, Hazrat Maryam, who's Ma'asuma herself, they both used to eat. You gotta help us out more than that. Isn't that the reason I'm telling you that they both used to eat is there will come a time later on that people will start saying and considering them to be gods and equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today I want you to be known, let it be known that huwa yut'imu wa la yut'am. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He feeds and does not need any feeding. Kana yakulan ta'am, they both used to eat. Go ahead and do the math that because they used to eat, they cannot be partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, nobody could be partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those people who are claiming Hazrat Isa and Janab Maryam to be partners and sharik with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a false claim because they both used to eat. For this purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given this example. Not because He was explaining to us what kind of individuals they were. There are other things that Allah has mentioned in regards to Hazrat Isa and Janab Maryam. But then over here we see that there's exception to this law. Allah said He feeds and does not require feeding. But then when it comes to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam, Allah makes this exception and says, يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Not only that I feed, but I have also given this right to Ahlul Bayt, these closest ones, that they also feed. Although they have the love for this feeding, but they also feed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I know that I have extended time today, but I'm not going to misuse the extended time and keep you guys over here for too long. So we got to look beyond this when we're preferring others over ourselves. I wanted to share a hadith in this regard where our sixth Imam spoke to one of his close companions, Mu'alla ibn Khunais. And when he was mentioning, he mentions the rights of a mu'min on another mu'min. And when he says that there are 7 wajibat, all of which are wajib, although you would not find them to be in the books where they're considered to be wajib. But Imam says they are like wajib, but I'm not going to tell you. This person said, oh Mawla, you have mentioned it, please go ahead and tell me, so that I can go ahead and do those things, or I see if I'm doing this already or not. Imam said, no, I'm compassionate and merciful upon you. I'm afraid that I'll tell you, you will not be able to protect it. Very quickly, I want especially the kids to pay attention to these small things that Imam is considering to be wajib. I'll go through them quickly because I have to go long way today, and I want to get this out of the way. First right that Imam mentions, he says, أَن تُحِبَّ لَهُ مَا تُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِكَ وَتَكْرَهَ لَهُ مَا تَكْرَهُ لِنَفْسِكَ. First right of your brother that you have upon you, your brother has upon you, is that you like, for whatever you like for yourself, you should like for him, and whatever you dislike for yourself, you should dislike for him. Now we go ahead and ask ourselves, in our practice, in our daily lives, when we help someone out, what are we helping them out with? That which we like for ourselves, or that which we have used up already, and if we don't need it anymore, that which we go ahead and give it out. Again, you look at the mutabiqat, implementation with the lives of Masumeen. Amirul Mu'mineen one day went to market with his ghulam, with his servant. He bought 2 shirts. One was a little bit expensive, the second one was ordinary. His ghulam knew that Imam always buys something for him, and he buys for himself as well. All this way, he's thinking that Imam has bought the expensive one for himself because he's the Mawla, and bought the cheaper one for me because I'm the ghulam. But still, he was content with the 2 shirts that Imam had bought. To his surprise, when they come home, Imam gives him the expensive one, saying that you are younger, it will suit you more, and I'll take the cheaper one. Prime example of how you should like what you like for yourself for another individual, and you should dislike what you dislike for yourself for another individual. When it comes to taking care of the masjid, donating for the masjid, we spend so much for our own houses, for our own cars, for our own comfort. You look at the bill that comes at the end of the month, you look and going through your statements, you see the MasterCard, $1,000. Visa card, for example, I don't know how many dollars. In that, if you see MFI, $100, it will make you feel good. It will make you feel good. You see that MasterCard is taking this much every month. The other cards are taking that much. But in the midst of that, Muslim Foundation, $150 or $1,000, for example. Whatever you choose. It'll make you feel good. That at least with all the other expenses that I'm making every month and all that money which is being taken out of my account every month, at least there's one thing that I think is worth spending and investing in, and you will feel better. And it's so subtle and it's so smooth that you don't even feel the burden of it. Automatically it's taken out, and you don't feel the burden of it. But when it comes to asking on regular basis, nobody likes to ask. Nobody likes to ask. So if it goes on its own, it is good for you, and it's also good for those who are asking for this. Salawat bhiji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. I'll skip through the rest of the hadith because there's 6 other rights that Imam mentions. Inshallah, maybe at another day, another time, we will discuss. I'm here all year long, so I'll have the opportunity many times. Going back to the messages from Ashura, which we didn't get a chance to talk about today at all. Isar that we discussed yesterday, preferring others. And one of the keys that come out of this Isar is tawakkul and relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it does not mean that you do not need other tools. Sometimes the different explanation of tawakkul and reliance is given that you only rely on Allah and then you cut off with the khalq and the creation. No. If you want to travel, you still need a means to get somewhere. If you're in a conflict with another, you have a war, for example, you're going to need weapons. You're not going to say, I have tawakkul on Allah and just get into the battlefield. No, you'll need the weapons. For everything, you will need these tools. But with this tool, all of these tools, you need to have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll give you an example. So many things that you have done in your life, you made sure that all of the requirements were fulfilled. You made sure that you got there on time. You made sure that you had enough what was required. Everything was perfect, yet you still did not succeed. How many times has that happened to you? Whether it be examination, you studied properly, or maybe at work, that you prepared some presentation, everything was fine, but still you did not succeed. This tells you that even though all the tools are ready and are prepared and completely satisfactory, yet still you fail. This tells you that there's another power that is needed beyond it. And that is the tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you had that little tawakkul as well, with all the materials that you need, that is the last boost for this task to be completed. This is where we see Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, that he says to his brother, Muhammad Hanafiya, when he was leaving with all of these questions that I was saying were coming about, Imam don't go, Imam don't do this and whatnot. This is what he says, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ وَهُوَ حَسْبِي وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Words of Imam Hussein. He said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. There's no tawfiq for me, there's no strength for me except in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ. I rely completely upon Him. He's sufficient for me and He's the best guardian. This is how Imam is embarking on this journey. And then we see that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was on the morning of Ashura, this is how Imam alayhi salatu wasalam begins the war. Or when the war had started, this is what Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says. He said, Allahumma anta thiqati fi kulli karbin wa anta raja'i fi kulli shiddatin wa anta li fi kulli amrin nazala bi thiqatun wa iddatun. O Allah, you are to me a trust, a supporter in all of the calamities. You are to me the hope, the only hope in all that befalls. You are my trust, you are my supporter, you are the one upon whom I rely completely. And that is the reason that Imam kept going. Even on the way he learned the news that Muslim ibn Aqil had been killed. If Imam was relying on his companions, family members, and anyone in this world, Imam would have retreated. But because he was relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam kept going. Even after hearing Hani had been killed, Muslim had been killed, all of these people have been killed, yet Imam, he was musammam, he had made up this mind with the tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that kept him going. And then on the evening, on the day of Ashur, this is what Imam says, Inni tawakkaltu ala Allahi Rabbi wa Rabbukum. When he's facing the enemy, he said, I have done tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my Lord and your Lord. He's the same Lord. He's mine and yours both. There's no difference in that regards. But I have tawakkul on Him as to what am I embarking upon. And when Imam alayhi salatu wassalam was breathing his last breaths, this is what he said. He said, Asta'inu bika dha'ifan wa atawakkalu alayka kafiyan. That I ask for your assistance when I have become da'if and weak. And I rely only upon you, even in this last moment of my life. This is how Imam alayhi salatu wasalam showed the tawakkul that he had on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see that Imam, when he was leaving, among the people that came and spoke to Imam were Abdullah ibn Ja'far, who is the husband of Janab Zainab. Said to Imam, O Imam, if you're worried that you will be killed over here, I will get a letter from the head of the state giving you immunity. You don't have to worry about that. Imam said, you're worried about me being in danger and getting a letter of security and immunity for me? Who's going to give a letter of security and immunity for the religion? I'm worried about the religion. Although these were the words of Abdullah ibn Ja'far, but he was again looking at Imam from this aspect that you and I were looking. And we would have done the same thing and stopped Imam. But Imam had another vision. But this is where we see the support of Abdullah ibn Ja'far. What does he say? He said, Oh Imam, if the decree of Allah is that you should go, and your command is that I should stay, then take my children with you as my sacrifice for you. I want to ask all of you who are sitting here with your kids, God forbid if there was ever need, and it was ever needed by you to go ahead and do something out of the ordinary, would you rather jump in or would you send your kids? You would hold your kids back. You would go first. This shows the heart of Abdullah ibn Ja'far. that he knows that he cannot go. This shows one of the biggest sacrifices in Karbala without going is what Abdullah ibn Ja'far is giving. Ja'far Tayyar is giving. You would not send your kids. You would hold your kids back. I will go ahead and sacrifice myself first, and then I'll send my kids. This is the beauty of Karbala. That while at one end, some people are getting ready to sacrifice themselves, but on the other hand, there are people who cannot go. They're sending the compensation and the fidya ahead of time. We see that Baneen, who cannot be part of the event of Karbala, but she sends 4 of her kids. Oh, my children, make sure that Imam Hussein is not hurt until you are alive. Among them is Qamar Bani Hashim, Abul Fadl Abbas. Imam Hassan knows that he will not be alive when Imam Hussein is in Karbala. That's why he writes in his wasiyyat, "O my son Qasim, be my representative and represent me in Karbala when the musibat comes on my brother." And likewise, Abdullah ibn Ja'far Tayyar is doing the same thing. He's sending his kids to be with Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. The words that came out of Imam's mouth when Abdullah had given this chance to Imam, or had offered this thing to Imam, Imam said, Yazid ibn Muawiyah had put me in a place where either I draw my sword or I embrace humiliation. And he said, Hayhat min zillah. I will never face humiliation. I would rather die, but not face humiliation. The night of Ashura comes. We see that Imam ﷺ comes to the tent. Janab Zainab asks, "O my brother, O my Mawla, what have you decided?" Imam says, "Oh sister, everything has been decided. Tomorrow we must fight. And tomorrow is the day of martyrdom. Every single one will be shaheed tomorrow. And it comes a time that you and I will be separated. So get ready for that." The ladies started preparing their kids. Those ladies listening to me in the other hall, sitting with their kids. This is the reason today Janab Zainab is giving us the message. How they're ready for sacrifice. That tomorrow, if there's ever a need, you should not hold back your children. Look at how Zainab and the other ladies are preparing their kids. I would imagine the kids, although on Muhammad were not that young, but the other kids, they might not have known the exact depth of what they were about to do. But at least these mothers knew exactly the dangers that lied ahead of them. What kind of hearts do these mothers have that they're willingly sacrificing their kids right in front of their eyes? Allahu Akbar. I understand the kids going through, maybe not understanding it completely, although they also understood completely. But how on the earth were these mothers ready for such a sacrifice? Janab Zainab is preparing her kids. Preparing for what? Preparing for them to be killed tomorrow. Other ladies are doing the same exact thing. You know what they're asking their kids? They're asking them that tomorrow, when their time comes, do not let us down. When you and I go for a journey, especially our mothers, whoever their mothers are alive, especially our mothers, what do? They put Imam Zamin. They give sadaqah. And throughout the journey, they're making dua for the safe return. Allahu Akbar. On these mothers in Karbala, they're not putting Imam Zamin. They're not taking out sadaqah on their behalf, nor are they making the dua for their safe return. Instead, what are they making the dua? Do not come back alive. If you do, what kind of face am I going to show to Janab Sayyida? Oh no, Muhammad, remember this, that you're grandchildren of Ja'far al-Tayyar. You're grandchildren of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali, who served all of his life for the sake of Islam. Ja'far al-Tayyar, who were martyred, and he lost both of his hands and was given wings by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You come from a brave background. Make sure you live up to that expectation. These are the advices Janab Zainab is giving to her kids. The day of Ashura comes. The two kids come in front of their uncle, asking for the permission to go ahead and perform the sacrifice. But Imam is not giving the permission. How difficult must have been. Again, look at the concept of Isar, that all of the companions are sacrificing themselves before one of the Banu Hashim can go. No one from Banu Hashim was martyred until all the Ashab had sacrificed themselves. Although it must have been easier, the sooner you went, the less pain you had to face, the less thirst you had to face. The later you went, the more pain you had to face, and the more thirst you had to go through. And that's why it just makes everything so much more difficult for Imam Hussein, because he's the last one to go. Janab Zainab comes doing the sifarish for her kids, saying, "Oh Mawla, give my kids permission to go ahead and perform this jihad." Imam says, "Oh my sister, what have you asked? Do you know what you are demanding? You are demanding the killing of your children from me. You know, if they go towards the maqtal, they will not come back alive." Janab Zainab says, "I'm well aware of this, my Mawla. I have already prepared my children for the jihad that lies ahead of them." With this mentality, Imam gives the permission. And the teacher of these children, Aun Muhammad, Hazrat Abbas, prepares the kids. They mount onto the horse, and they both, some narrations mention that they both went together. Some say they went one after the other, but nonetheless they both go towards the maqtal. And the mother had one last request from them, that, "Oh my children, if you ever felt thirsty and you were fighting and you found yourself close to the Furat, do not drink from it. Why? Remember that Ali Asghar is still thirsty in the tents. Remember that Sakina is still thirsty in the tents. Do not drink any of the water." Oh no, Muhammad, go. They go out to the battlefield, and right away on is saying that, "If you don't know me, in tunkiruni fa'ana ibnu Ja'far." If you deny me, if you do not know me, then let it be known that I am the grandson of Ja'far, the one who has the wings near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He performs the jihad, and he goes ahead and sacrifices himself. Both of these brothers come down, and they are killed. And then they call upon their Mawla, Imam Hussein, to come for their rescue. As they had called upon the Mawla, Imam Hussein, to come for rescue, Imam takes Hazrat Abbas with him. He said, "Oh Abbas, come with me. I will not be able to hold both of the children in my arms." Imam takes Hazrat Abbas. Hazrat Abbas comes to with Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. They bring on Muhammad back to the tents. And when they had brought them to the tents, they said to Fizza, "Oh Fizza, go tell Zainab that on Muhammad have returned." Fizza comes inside the tent, and she says, "Oh Zainab, your children have come back." Zainab does not respond. He said, "Oh Zainab, your kids have come back." Zainab does not say anything. She says for the last time that, "Oh Zainab, do you not want to see your kids on Muhammad?" She says, Zainab replies by saying, "I ordered them not to come back. How will I face my mother, Janab Sayyida?" Fizza says, "Oh Zainab, before saying anything, please come out and take a look in which condition your kids have come back." Zainab comes out, sees the blood upon the kids, and she thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, throws herself into sajda. "Oh Allah, accept this shahadat from me. Now I can live up and I can face my mother, Janab Sayyida, that, oh my mother, look at, my kids were sacrificed as long as your son was alive. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we have committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, deal with your mercy and do not deal with us with your adl. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and the strength to be able to follow the footsteps of Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and the strength to be able to follow the teachings of Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam and make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumeen. Their names were recited, and those people who do not have anyone to recite Surah Fatiha for them. Surah Fatiha.